Hello everyone and welcome to the Joy of Editing with Dave Kelly. On today's episode I thought I would show you a typical workflow that I use when I'm working on my flower images. I start out in Lightroom, then I'll move over to Photoshop, and then I'll also work with Topaz plugins in there. So I thought I'd show you how I do this, so let's get started. So here we are in Lightroom. So the first thing I like to do is come over to this profile section here. Right now it's set at Adobe Standard. See these four little rectangles, I guess you call them. Give that a click. And inside here, you're going to see some favorite profiles that I have in here. Now, here's Adobe Color, Adobe Standard. And the nice thing about Lightroom is you can just hover over these profiles and see how they're going to act with your picture. So let's look at Adobe Color. I use this one a lot, and here's Adobe Vivid. Now, this is a flower image, so I want it to be colorful, but I think Vivid's a little bit too strong. I'm just going to go to Color. I think that looks pretty good. So give that a click, and then you can close this out here. The next thing I like to do is check the color balance out. So I'll typically just play with these sliders here and maybe warm it up a little bit here. Just slightly, not much. And let's look at the tint. Don't my green's a little more green, or my magenta's a little more magenta. I just want it to look natural, so I'll just play with these sliders a little bit to get it to look the way I like it. There's really no right or wrong here. It's really up to you how the image looks and what you think is the best. And right there, I think looks pretty good. And a lot of times I'll try the tone here where it says auto, because I believe that Photoshop uses some artificial intelligence with this auto adjustment here. So I'll give that a click just to see what it does. And it sets a pretty nice adjustment for me here. Now it'll set your white and black points. It won't touch your present section here. It will work with the vibrance and saturation, so we'll come and look at those. No, I just don't accept that the way it is. I'll come and tweak this a little bit. So I might look at the exposure here and say, you know what, I want a little more exposure in this image, so I'll just work with that till I get it to where I think it looks fairly nice. And look at the contrast. Sometimes in my flowers I like a little less contrast to give them a little more ethereal look, so I might just pull that contrast back a little bit. And then I'll look at the shadows. Sometimes I'll open those shadows up more just to give me that more dreamy look. See, because if you pull the shadows to the left, it starts to give you more contrast. And I don't like that look as much because I'm looking for a more ethereal type look, dreamy look. So maybe somewhere right around in there. And then look at the white and black point. And also look at your histogram up here and see how things are going. I'm not blowing any highlights out. My shadows are slightly clipped. So I might take my black point and I might just bump that a little bit to the right just till that highlight or that shadow clipping warning goes away. And a little clipping there really doesn't really matter too much. But I think right around there is good for the vision I have today. Now, sometimes I'll work with a tone curve, but in this case, I'm not going to touch that because I like the way things are looking here. So, hey, if it's not broke, don't fix it, right? And of course, you can play with split toning and things like that. I generally do that stuff inside of Photoshop, and I'll use Topaz for that if I want to add split toning. And then I go to my detail here, and generally I'll just leave the default sharpening, which is set at 25 for capture sharpening. I just leave it there. Noise reduction, I leave it off because I let Topaz handle that. They have the best noise reduction in the business. And lens corrections I automatically have set up. Well, in this case, I reset this image, so let me go ahead and click on Remove Chromatic Aberrations and enable Profile Corrections. Okay, and it picks your lens and your camera and things like that. So, all right, then I'll come back up here to Basic, and let me just look in here, see if I need to tweak anything else. So I might want to look at my vibrance and my saturation. Do I want any more vibrance in this? I don't know. I might just want a little extra vibrance here. Just a little bit, not much. Now, let me zoom into this image at a 2:1 here. This image is a little bit soft right here. I would like this section of the flower to be a little sharper, but you know what? I can get that with Topaz Sharpen AI. That'll fix that right up, and you'll see how that works. The rest of the flower is kind of nice. It's a shallow depth of field. I shot this at, let me go back to library here. I shot this with a 60mm macro lens at 3.5, so it's a nice shallow depth of field, and that was the look I was looking for. ISO is at 800, all right? And then all you need to do is right click the image and go to edit in, and I'm going to choose Photoshop. All right, and that'll launch Photoshop for us. And here we are in Photoshop. The first thing I want to do in Photoshop is duplicate this background layer. So it's Command or Control J to duplicate the background layer. Then I'm going to come up here to Filter, and I'm going to come to Topaz Labs. And the first thing I want to do is denoise this image. So Topaz Denoise, I'm going to select that. That'll launch Topaz Denoise. And here we go. It pre-processes the image here. And okay, so it's automatically doing the initial process. Now, inside of Topaz Denoise, you have automatically update preview. I have it selected yes. This computer's pretty quick, so it processes pretty fast. So if your computer's slower, you can set that to no, so it doesn't because if I just move this a little bit, watch, if I move this like this a little bit, it'll start to reprocess again. So if you don't want that to happen, just, say no here. And the default setting is usually pretty good, the auto setting, and I like it. And here you have select a model. You have denoise AI, or you can use the AI clear model. I like the denoise AI model, so I'm going to use that. And if I click the original here, you can see the original and see the noise up in there. Let me click it again, and you can see that totally removes the noise. And it also adds a little bit of sharpness here. But I'm going to use Sharpen AI to bring this sharpness back in here. So I'm just going to apply this. That'll bring us back into Photoshop. And the next thing we'll do is we'll add the Sharpen AI to it. I will duplicate the background layer again because that's just a habit I have. I want to work non-destructively. All right, so I'm going to hit Command or Control J, depending if you have a Mac or a PC. I'm working with a Mac, so it's Command J. And then I'm going to come to Filter and back to Topaz Labs. Find Sharpen AI. Where are you, Sharpen AI? Right here. Okay, I'm going to launch that. That'll bring us into Sharpen AI. This takes a little longer than the denoise. And there's different models here. You have Sharpen, and I'll show you after this is done processing. And we're particularly looking at this section right in here. That's just typical sharpening right there. But I can use, and I'll try these two different modes here, stabilize and focus. These things are miracle workers. Let's try stabilize first. These algorithms, I guess you would call them algorithms, take a little bit longer because they're doing a lot more. They're really analyzing your image here. So this takes a bit of time here. So just bear with this. To me, it's worth a little extra time to get things right, because normally I probably wouldn't use this image because I want this section to be relatively sharp here. To me, that's important. I missed that a little bit in the focus. I don't have the greatest eyes, so sometimes I miss those things. And as I can see right here, boy, that really sharpened it up. Now, I've done this before. I could go to the focus mode. I don't want to bore you, because I know that the stabilize work better. So just trust me, I tried focus, but the stabilize work better. So I'm just going to go ahead and accept that. So I'm just going to click apply, and again, it's going to process out, and then we can start to work on this image here. But these are all the initial stages to get me to a good point. And then we'll analyze the image. In fact, while this is still processing, see these leaves right here. I don't like these, and I'll show you how I get those out. That'll be next. We're almost done. Patience. Patience, my son. It will be done very, very soon. And there it is. All right, so here we are back in Photoshop. Okay, so I want to get rid of these leaves. So I'm going to get a lasso tool. The shortcut for that is L. And I'm just going to draw loosely around these leaves here. Like so. Even get this little guy up in here. I don't want him. And then I'm going to use, I'm going to come to, where is it at? In Edit, Content Aware Fill. This is awesome. This is something they've added in, about maybe 4 updates back in Photoshop. This is awesome Content Aware Fill. And in here, we have two screens here. We have this side, the area that you see in green is the area that it's going to sample from. And you can say, you know what, I don't want it to sample from, like, you can paint out areas. Like, I don't want it to sample from these flowers here. Actually, you know what, I probably did want it to sample from the one flower, but you can just paint this. Areas that you don't want it to be sampled from. And if I wanted to paint, well, yeah, I'm just going to leave it go at that and see what happens. In fact, you can see right now what it's done over here if you look over here. Let me see what happens if I paint that in. If I hold the Option key down and paint, it'll paint the green back in. So maybe I'll just add this section back here and let it see if it can sample from there. And it'll update this sample over here. You can see the little spinning wheel. Okay. All right, it put a little bit of funkiness right there. Now you have different things you can do over here, and the best thing to do here is just try these things. Right now, color adaptation is at default. Rotation adaptation is at none. So let me go ahead and say none here, and watch it update here and see how this looks. Okay, there's still that little bit of pink there. That's not bad, but let's just try some of these different settings here and watch what it does. It's a little better. Whoops. Sampling area. Oh, I hit the wrong thing there. I want to try very high. This sampling area, you can just change the color of this, what you want that to be. Well, look, that did better. See how you just got to try the different things. And then I might even go to rotation adaptation and click here and say low and see what it does. That's even better. Low, let's try medium. I don't really understand all the rhyme or reason behind these, but here's what I do know. If you click these and try different ones, you'll see what it does. Not much change there. Let's try high. Okay, not much change. So, tell you what, I'm just going to go back down to, I think it was on low originally. I'm just going to accept that. I think that looks good. Now, you have an option here. You can output to a new layer, duplicate layer or current layer. I always like to do new layer, so I'm just going to click OK. And that'll bring us back into Photoshop. And you can see my selection here. Command D is the shortcut to get rid of that. And it did a pretty nice job. Then usually what I'll do is make a blank layer above that. Again, for non-destructive working. Get my healing brush, which is J is the shortcut key. And I'll just, this little section right here, I don't like it, so let's give that a little tap and it clears right up. So that's really nice. The next thing I want to do is pull all these layers together and combine it into one layer. And that's Shift, Option, Command, or Option, Control, E. That just pulls all these layers together into one layer, which is layer 3. So that's the completed layer. And it's not a bad idea to go ahead and name these layers. I'm not going to do that right now, but I generally like to name my layers as I'm working. There's just a couple things bugging me in this flower, and you can see like this little white mark here, a little imperfection in the flower here. Hey, in my world, I like my flowers to look perfect. So I'm going to get my healing brush, that's J, and I'm going to get a blank layer and put it above layer 3. And I've got my healing brush selected, and I have sample all layers selected. Very important to do this. This helps you to work non-destructively, and I'm just going to paint over that area. Here's just little imperfections like right here, things that I don't want. And this healing brush is a miracle worker. Okay, little things like this. Even if you got over the edge a little bit, it'll fix that edge. It's really nice right there. Okay, so right like that, it's cleared. And then all you have to do is right click layer 4 here and say merge down, and it'll just combine that layer with layer 3. So that's the next step. Now I'm just looking over my image and seeing if there's any problem areas. To me, a couple little problem areas are these areas of light, like right in here and right in here. I like to tone those down a little bit. So here's a little technique that I have, and I've already used Topaz denoise AI, and it got rid of pretty much every bit of noise that was in this image. So I can just go ahead and use some regular paint and paint over these areas. So here's how I do that. I'll make a blank layer above the top layer. And I have my opacity set to 50% on my paintbrush and my flow set to 10%. So I can build this up slowly. And what I'll do is I'll option click around this area here and find one of these colors. And I'll just paint very slowly over these areas and try to blend this in a little bit. And I'll sample some other colors around it so I get a nice natural looking blend here. And I'm just wanting to tone down these colors a little bit. See this little edge here that bugs me, so I'm going to get some of this color here and just paint over this just to make that go away. You know, you could do cloning and things like that, but to me this is quicker and it's faster. Now this color here I don't like, so I'm going to sample some of this darker color. I'm not going to totally paint it away, I just want to tone it down a little bit. Come over here, sample some of this around here. Just painting around. I'll use some of that same color and come down in here and paint some of that out in here. Again, I just want to tone it up, tone it down, not up. Tone it down, Dave. Just a little bit, and maybe darken this section on this edge here a little bit here. And it helps to whisper. I just find that does help. Sample colors around it so you can blend it in nicely. And again, with the nice thing is I have that low flow and low opacity. So let's click this layer on and off. So there's a before and after. So you can see it just tones it down. If you've overstepped it, you can just come to the opacity and start to pull that back a little bit and just add a little bit of that in there. If you still want to maintain a little bit of that lightness, you know, maybe I'll just, I don't know. I want most of it out, but maybe something like that. So let's option click the background layer so we can see here's the before where we started out with, and here's the after. So that's where we're at so far. And I think it's a nice improvement. Now I want to pull all this together onto a layer on top of layer 4. So I'm going to do another Shift, Option, Command, or Control E, and that'll stamp that up to its own new layer point, all these layers together. All right, and so then I'm going to come to Filter and down to Topaz Studio, launch that, and I'm going to do some work inside of Topaz Studio next. I'm not going to do a whole lot in here. I mainly want to do some vignetting because I think this image is pretty nice just the way it is. Okay, so now I want to add a vignette. So let's come up to Add Filter and go to the Vignette filter right here. I'm going to take my opacity the whole way off, and I'm going to click on this color drop down right here, and I'm going to start out by picking a green color. So I'm going to get this little eyedropper tool and find some kind of a green color that might work. Maybe right here, click on that, and let's lighten that up a little bit. Click OK, and then let's pull our opacity up. And of course we can play with our strength here a little bit. We'll see what green looks like. I'm going to also sample some pink and see how that works. We can adjust our size here a little bit. Our transition. Okay. I'm going to leave it at that for now. So that's the green. So that looks okay. So now what I want to do is click color, the color drop down again here. And now I'm going to sample some of the pink in here and see what that looks like. And maybe lighten it up a little bit. I can move this luminance slider here and just find a little spot that I think looks kind of nice. Right there, that tone looks good to me. So I'm going to click OK. And let's play with this strength here. So we can give it more. That's too much. I just want to have a nice foggy pink look around here. I like the pink. I think that's working out nice. So maybe something like that. And then we could come here to the Vignette Center and we could move this around and figure out what looks really good. Or I could click this little target selection tool here and click on my flower to make sure my flower doesn't get any of that extra pink on it. And I think that looks pretty good right there. Now we can come and adjust the roundness. See how that looks the best. Maybe, see, that's going up into the orange of the flower a little bit. So maybe I want to back that down a little bit. Just maybe somewhere right around in there. And then again, we can play with our strength a little bit. And I think maybe right around there. Now we can click on the canvas here. Here's the before and there's the after. Before and after. Now I can take the opacity. Let's take the opacity the whole way off. And let's slowly build it up and see if we can find a spot that we really like. I think I like it pretty much up full, but I might just back it off just a little bit. Let me play with this transition one more time. You just got to really work with this and see what you like. See, it's more of a rectangle shape. So I want a lot of transition in here, I believe. Yeah, so something like there, and I think that looks good. Next, I just want to bring a little bit of detail right on this section of flower here and on some of this petal here that is sharp right in here and maybe right in this area here. So I'm going to come to Add Filter, come to Precision Detail. I'm so glad it works now for me. And what I'm going to do is, let's zoom in here a little bit and look at this area in here. So right in here, I want this to be a little sharper. So I'm going to take the overall small detail, bump that up just a little bit. Maybe take the medium detail and just pull that up a little bit. Now, I'm not looking at the rest of the image. I don't care about the rest of the image. I only care about right in here, and right here. Okay. So now what I'll do is come up to the Precision Detail layer right here and click on the Add Layer Mask. Invert this layer mask. Come right here, click here, invert the layer mask. Get a brush. Make sure edge aware is turned off. I want to adjust my radius size. A smaller size like that. Make sure my transparency is the whole way up to white. And I just want to paint in like right around in here, right up through here, and maybe right here just a little bit. See, just to bring that out a little bit. Just in those areas. Now let's hit the eyeball here, before and after. That looks pretty good, I think. So let's zoom back out. And the next thing I want to do is maybe soften this background up a little bit. So to do that, I'm going to come and add another filter. I'm going to get another Precision Detail. And this time I'm looking at the area around the flower. Okay, so I'm going to take the overall medium detail and just pull it back, just to reduce the sharpness in the background, just to make it a little bit more soft and dreamy look, because that's the look I'm looking for in this image here. And now I'm going to come up to the layer mask, add a layer mask on the Precision Detail layer. I'll leave it in white so everything shows through. I'll get a brush. This time I'll leave the edge aware on. Transparency set to black. Adjust my brush size. It's a little bit smaller, and what I'll do is just come right in this area right in here, paint that off up into here, and maybe the section right here, I'll make my brush a little bit smaller. I do have edge aware on, like maybe like that, and I just want to paint this little petal of the flower right here, and make sure that's painted here. Okay. So I think that looks good. So let's click the eyeball here. Here's the before and here's the after. See, it just adds a little bit more dreaminess to the image. And I think that's good. So I'm just going to come and click accept up here in the upper left-hand corner. That brings us back into Photoshop. So here's the before and here's the after. And I like it. I think it looks really good. Well, there was my typical workflow for flower images. Now, this particular image is a type of an image that I like to shoot a lot with a macro lens, a very shallow depth of field, a nice little dreamy background to it, very selective focus. Topaz Sharpen AI really helped out on making this image work for me, so that's really awesome. And the denoising is amazing with the Noise AI. A little bit of Vignette, so I really like this. And if you enjoyed this video today, please give it a like and share it with your friends. And also, if you're not yet subscribed to my channel, please subscribe and click the bell notification icon. This way, when I put a new video out, you'll know about it, all right? Hey, thank you so much for joining me on The Joy of Editing with Dave Cully today, and I will see each and every one of you right here next time.